welcome you all to our 4th annual conference, except for we missed election year. It's a national conference and lobbying day. My name is Kathy Orlando, and I'm the luckiest person in the world because I know what is going on behind the scenes, much more so than a lot of people. And although I'm a little nervous, I'm about, what we have ahead of us. I'm actually really confident as well. And that's because I work with the best volunteers on the planet. You can open up your notebook. It's nice to read along. You know what, this is giving me audio feedback up here, and if you can turn down the volume, that would help me immensely. Thank you. We would like to acknowledge the Algonquin Nation, whose traditional and unceded territory we are gathered upon today. "2017 is a very special year. Many of us celebrated the 100th anniversary of the formation of the Dominion of Canada. 150th, actually. And the 100th anniversary of Vimy. This is a Vimy scarf that I'm wearing. I went to the Vimy presentation at the War Museum, just out, on the other side of the Parliament buildings. It's amazing. And it's also the 100th anniversary of Borden's temporary income tax. No, you should be booing. Aren't you a tax guy back there? Anyways, so may we replace Borden's temporary income tax with carbon tax? And then may the next 150 years bring true reconciliation between the first people and the settlers. And I just found out I'm 100% settler blood, and I was so disappointed. The summer after I was trained by Al Gore, I took a month off with my family to bring my children to see the statue, the beautiful stone carving of Crazy Horse that is being carved out of a mountain near Mount Rushmore in the Black Hills of South Dakota. And while preparing for this conference, Gord Cumming from Wellington sent me a poem. So I hope to do this poem justice as a settler. And if you want to read along with me, it's on page 31 of your book. So it's in honor of Crazy Horse and the sacrifices of all our ancestors have made for us to still be here. We are the 7th generation, both settlers and First Nations. I rally not because I have to or because I want to. I rally because I'm pushed to. I rally because I'm driven to. I rally because the future isn't going to make itself. I rally so that the dreams I have may come true. I rally because the nightmares that wake me may also come true. I rally for my ancestors who are calling me to protect the land, our mother. I rally because I see despair among the people. They feel powerless, and I want to show them that nothing changes without being there or caring, and that is their power. I rally to stand strong amongst like-minded human beings, and it feels good. I rally to show the governments that for every lie, there is a human being listening and pointing out their lies. I rally to let the colonizers and the predators know that they will one day see the resistance that they have created. I rally to face the beasts and their cronies and show that I am not afraid. I rally to inspire the next 7 generations that one day may find themselves staring at the same beast still lurking in the shadows, and they will find that fear creeping into their spirit, but they know how to stand defiantly strong even in the fear that surrounds them. The generations of protectors must know that moving forward, while everyone around them has stopped, will change this world. The generations of warriors must know that the hardest part of the journey, even in death, begins with that first step. So I step out into the street and I pound my fist in the air, and I will show the predators that even in fear, we will not stop moving forward. I rally so that one day the generations may not have to be fearless, question everything, and most importantly, think and love enough to act. Okay. So now I have to do some housekeeping. Put your name and your phone number on everything. All of your folders look alike. So take a moment right now while I pick up the thing I dropped and put your name on your notepad, on your conference booklet. And I want you to see this conference booklet as your touchstone. Read it from cover to cover, please. So I'll just give you a minute to write down your name and phone number so people can dial you and give you back your stuff that you've left behind. And for those people who are online, I just wanted to acknowledge that if you go to the website, there's an actual copy of the booklet right on the page for this conference. You should easily see it as you open the page. If you're on Twitter or Facebook, if you could use the hashtag CCL 2017, that's great. And for those of you who know Roman numerals, what does CCCL stand for? 350. Hey, that's a magic number. Okay. Is Sophia here? Okay. I just wanted to make sure you were here before we did the next part. I'm going to do one more thing with you. It's an icebreaker. We're going to sing through this twice. I need you all to stand up. You'll see one in front of you. It's the song Sing for the Climate. Some of you may recognize it. It's from a Flemish environmental group from 2012, 2013. Yeah, some of you may also recognize Sing for the Climate. We sang it in 2013 at that bar. Okay, and some of you who were at CanRac, we sang it again this year, and Gia Hanchett and I over there were the only ones standing up and dancing around while it was playing. But we're going to do it a cappella, and I'm not going to sing into the mic, but I'm going to just give you I'm going to just hum it out for you a little bit. So I'm going to just sing it through once, but very quietly and not like a professional. And this is about getting out of your comfort zone. I don't sing, so here we go. I'm just going to sing it and then get the tune in your head. We need to wake up. We need to wise up. We need to open our eyes and do it now, now, now. We need to build a better planet. And we need to start right now. We're on a planet that has a problem. We've got to solve it, get involved and do it now, now, now. We need to build a better future. And we need to start right now. We need to build a better future. And we need to start right now. That was the practice. I'm going off mic. I want you to sing out to your community, far, far away, or close as it is. Okay, so I want you to belt it out. Okay, I won't belt it out, but you're going to belt it out. And I'm going to point the mic at you. So we need to sing this loudly. You ready? 5, 6, ready, and we need to wake up.
We need to wise up. We need to open our eyes and do it now, now, now. We need to build a better future. And we need to start right now. We're on a planet that has a problem. We've Not too solid yet and fall into it. Now we need to build a better future. And we need to start right now.
Really loud.
We need to build a better future. And we need to start right now.
Woo! So the plan is tomorrow is to flash mob our own conference with this song. Okay, where's Sophia? So, did I get it all? Yep. Okay. You ready, Sophia? So Sophia's going to introduce Jerry LaBelle. On the microphone.
Welcoming to the stage is Jerry, 1 year older!
Good afternoon and welcome. It's nice to see a lot of new faces. That's great. That's fantastic. We had a soft start, and the soft start, we're only about 15 minutes late, which is great for this organization, as you all know. We've had some really soft starts, maybe even slow, maybe not even non-starters sometimes. However, thank you for the introduction, Sophia. She was at the planning session last week, and Kathy said, Jerry, you need to update your bio. I said, okay, I'm 1 year older. And she picked up on that right away, obviously. It's great to be here. I've been doing this for a number of years, and I love coming to Citizens Climate Lobby. I have not personally been as involved as I'd like to be in the last couple of years because I've had a lot of things going on in my life. All good things, by the way, nothing negative. But it's important for us to look at what we're doing, where we're going. We're going to be setting some goals for your group in the community. And some of the things that I've learned from CCL and I'd like to share is, number one, is that I've learned that all politics is local. So when we talk about politics, these things happen in Ottawa and everything, but everything starts locally. That's why we lobby very closely in our community with everyone we can. Number two, it's very important to have a goal, and CCL has a very important goal, and we're focused on that goal. I can't tell you how many people have called me and said, well, maybe we should review things, we should look at our policies and everything else. The policy and our approach is quite simple. We want a price on carbon. We would love for the money that's charged on the price of carbon to be given back to the citizens. Yes, we will help educate the politicians as to how that can be done, but that's our reason for being. My wife and I have these debates all the time. She feels we should be talking about other things, and then when I bring it back down, she says, no, you're absolutely correct. The other thing, too, is that we've been smart enough as organizations in this country to each take on different aspects of the whole environmental movement. That's very important, too, because it means we have more voices giving more information to more people than if we just gathered as one large organization. And I think we do really well that way. And I think that we need to stay there, and I think we're going in the right direction. And we have had victories in the last few years. We have things to celebrate. We're nowhere near where we want to be, but we're getting closer to the goal. And that's what we want to talk about this afternoon as well, when we talk about where are we going next. I want to just go around the room, and what I'd like to do is if you can have one scribe at each of your tables, please. Well, you don't have to scribe your own. Tom, don't you have any friends? God, this guy. You could sit with them. They said they'd accept you behind. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is I'd just like you to say out loud as we go around the room, they're giving you 1 or 3 things that you have done in your community or that you have done with CCL or for the environment that you are proud of and something you'd like to share. So let's go around a little bit. And let's start with Dr. I forget, Bora, right?
I haven't done too much, but I have tried to take positions elsewhere.
Good, fantastic. It should be on a microphone. Yeah, I've got microphone too. So,
Check 2.
No, here.
No, I'm not, because my wife told me to change what I did. Actually, I was when she's in the same room, yes, I do. I was involved in a campaign to get the Canadian Medical Association to divest from fossil fuels in their pension scheme.
Did you want to add something to that? And don't say he said everything you were going to say.
I don't know really what I've got to say to add to this, except that I've been involved with a couple of marches or presentations with Kathy Orlando in Sudbury.
Thank you very much. Judy.
Working with Laura and Nelson West Kootenay, we managed to get over 40 businesses to sign Cheryl's open letter, and that was really exciting.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. Lonely Tom.
Well, one thing was going to the international conference in June for the 6th consecutive time. It's fun to be in a room of 1,500 people that are, you don't have to explain CF&D to. And going to the Senate and the House in Washington is fun too.
So what is CF&D? No, just kidding. We're going to go back here. André Crépeau.
I've gone to a few rallies. One of them was against the LNG port near Quebec City. And I support my husband, whose text is in here. His name is Wayne, and he likes heroes.
This is good. This is good. Wyneth. But no H. Just win it. Win it.
I'm new to CCL, so or C is that? Sorry, I hope I got the acronym. CCL. But at the local level right now, I'm lobbying, going to all the pre-budget consultations to push Ottawa to make sure they have money for a solid renewable energy strategy and to take faster action on climate change.
Fantastic. Good stuff.
I'm Rolly Montpellier. I'm involved with various things, but one of the discussions going on right now is by Climate Reality to set up a Climate Reality Hub in Ottawa. So I'm involved in that, and LTEs and blog articles, and I'm here. So.
Thank you very much. Fantastic.
I'm Peter Nix. 18 years ago, I quit my job as an environmental consultant to the tar sands company, and I've been an activist ever since. 8 years ago, we stopped a train coming up from America, a coal train, and got arrested, so we've been busy.
Yay, I love people like this. Go on this side of the room. Anita.
I'm Anita Payne. I had a letter to the editor I wrote in the summer that got published in a whole bunch of papers. It was really awesome. And Kathy asked me to bring something here, and I have brought my quilted planet Earth.
Beautiful. Thank you very much.
Okay, the name of this piece is Earth, Our Home Planet.
Katarina.
Thank you, Jerry. So I've been getting some letters to the editor published. I'm excited about some lobbying appointments we have next week, particularly with Bardish Chagger, our MP and House Leader. And I'm also spreading the word about whole food vegan diets, which really help with climate change.
Thank you. My name is Gene Nelson, and I'm new at this, but I take the opportunity to preach to Girl Guides that I still work with, and occasionally I gather up enough courage to speak to my Rotarians.
Yeah, Keith McNeil. I'm the editor of a small newspaper in Clearwater, British Columbia, and so I don't have any trouble getting letters. Well, actually, I do have troubles getting
letters to the editor published, but I do write editorials. So yeah, it makes life interesting sometimes.
Over to Rick.
I'm Rick Lochtenberg and new to CCL. This year, probably helping to almost elect a fourth Green Party MLA in BC and forming the first Green Caucus in North America.
On a similar front, Laura Sachs, and I'm near Nelson, British Columbia. And one thing that we did in our local chapter in the lead up to the elections is we did a fully nonpartisan climate comparison chart on carbon pricing and other related policy platforms of the parties, and we distributed it quite widely, and we did a lot of letters to the editor in the lead up, making sure that climate was being discussed.
I'm Hans Freiner, here from Ottawa. I'm not a climate scientist, but trying to learn what's going on. And I think I figured out how much the world has to reduce on carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases. My preliminary answer is 2.4% per year. And I'm still working on it.
I'm Guy Hanchett. I'm from Lakefield, Ontario, and the most recent thing that I've done was it doesn't seem like it should have been very hard, but it took me 2 years to convince the Unitarian Church that I'm a member of in Peterborough to divest from its last remnants of fossil fuel investments.
I'm Chris Lavelle from Halifax. I'm really just getting started.
Hi, I'm Cheryl McNamara. I guess one of the things I'm proud about, I think I'm proud about the open letter. I'm really happy how it's snowballing, which is great in a great way. Starting a CCL chapter and reaching out to the media when I was really nervous to get editorial meetings. So.
I'm Christine Beale. I'm from the London area, and I'm married to Greg next beside me here. And my contribution has been many, 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 many hours listening to my husband go on and on and on and on. And I can say I've learned a lot, but I'm here to support him as well.
Hi, I'm Greg Beale. I'm married to Christine Beale. I'm also from the London area, and I'm embarrassed for us. I can feel it. Yeah, so I'm fairly new to CCL, but not new to climate. And our background is kind of municipal government finance, so we come at this very much from a policy point of view. And we kind of speak the language of politicians a little bit, and we're hoping to maybe make a difference in the messaging to them, because we really depend on government to protect us. So yes, I guess at a local level, the biggest thing I do is I talk climate. When I meet a neighbor, we need someone at the restaurant or someone at the grocery store, they better be ready, because it just drops out. So, but I think that's important. So anyway. Amar.
Hi, I'm Amar Kumar. I'm based out of Toronto. I think I'm most proud of finding letter to the editor opportunities in conservative-based newspapers across Canada, because carbon fee and dividend does have a lot of merit in the conservative area, and so we'd love to see that on the Conservative Party platform.
I'm Elaine Blacklock. I'm from Sudbury, Ontario, and I'm most proud of being Kathy Orlando's neighbor. Well, who got there first? You were there first? Okay. I'm her neighbor then. Yeah, no. I am proud of having had 2 letters to the editor published this year so far. One of them sort of co-authored by Kathy. The other I did all by myself. So that's a first for me. And also that I just returned from climate reality training in Pittsburgh with Al Gore. So greetings from Pittsburgh. Is there anything else to say? Oh, and I'm taking a year off to work on climate change issues.
Yes. Okay. Hello, I'm John Stevenson from Lakeshore, Etobicoke. And getting back to the local, I guess we're most proud of starting a very tentative relationship with our MP, James Maloney. It's still at I would say, a tender stage because he's not a really cuddly sort of person. But the other thing, like several others here in Toronto, we supported our comrades in another organization called Climate Fast, which was probably instrumental in the city of Toronto approving its greenhouse gas reduction strategy. And we were there to make sure it depended so much on carbon pricing.
Thank you. Who is next?
Hi, I'm Mari Bishop from Ottawa. Well, I was. Pontiac, Quebec.
You're still Marjorie.
Yeah, Marjorie. And I guess I feel like I'm been an enabler more than a big, you know, doing big splashy things. I've learned a lot. I've hung in here in this organization for, I don't know, about 6 years, I think. We've kept a group going, a loose group, and wonderful people in the National Capital area. People come and go. We've had real highs, real lows. We've demonstrated, we've lobbied, and we've done outreach even when nobody was there to receive it. And, you know, it can get very discouraging. And I guess survival is one thing. Being part of a group has been very satisfying. I mean, and I think that's what that's a big help to keeping all of us involved in this. And really exciting things happen sometimes. And I guess the one thing that the latest insight is that I feel like I'm getting to know my current MP in a way that I didn't think I would. And I think he's doing good work and really is teaching us some things about how politics works. And so I'm hopeful about that relationship. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have lost my voice.
Kenny has a little bit.
But I'm proud of some writing letters and op-eds to local newspapers.
Thank you. Let me say something about Penny Henderson, and she's been in this as long as I have, and we marched together, and she's great.
My name is Lynn Ovenden. And I joined the National Capital Chapter last spring. So I feel new at this too. But I started to really wanted to do something about climate change last winter. And so my first move actually was to talk to the guy at the bank and figure out if there is a way if it was possible somehow to have less investment in the energy sector. So that was quite satisfying and a learning experience for both of us. I got the impression he learned more out of it than I did. And so I made some progress there. I also started talking to my family about climate, which I'd never done before, though I cared a lot about it. And so at a big family wedding down in Charleston, South Carolina, I told them I was going to go. It happened to be on the same day as the climate march in Washington. And so there was not I didn't think there was going to be a single action or march of any kind in the whole state of South Carolina on that day. It was probably an outlier amongst the states that way. And then at the last moment, a group set up a march, and so I went to it on the morning of the wedding. A couple of my siblings and nieces and nephews said they'd come, but then at the last moment they couldn't. But nevertheless, that was progress, starting to talk. I also started talking to them about electric vehicles. I really wanted to get a plug-in hybrid car. And so they were incredulous at first and wondered if that made no sense when there's no charging stations. But now I actually had to race my sister to get one. And she so we're all talking about that now. The other thing I did, I wrote to, I live in Eastern Ontario, so I wrote to the Saint-Albert Fromagerie suggesting that they get some solar energy on their new plant there. And probably nothing will happen, but I thought that was pretty good because I knew they needed more energy. And I also started writing to my MP, and we're going to have an interview with him on Monday morning.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Joe Jazvac. This is my first meeting. I felt very welcome, and I appreciate that. Just briefly, I've grown up as a bureaucrat at all three levels of government, and I'm just going to reflect. As a municipal manager, I've learned to work in the faces of the people that give their money and pay the taxes to me to run my recreation department. And I'm here also because I believe and trust boilerplate science. As a recreation director in a municipality, I understand the difference between an empty chair or having grandmother still living when you go home at Christmas can be as simple as how much resources were diverted to your recreation manager or grandma's recreation manager when she was a child. The science is there. Grandma gets a good rec director and a good program in her town, she's going to live 3 years longer. If she doesn't, somebody gets to live 6 years longer because the science is there, 3 years on average. There's going to be a lot of empty chairs in the future if we don't get this right. And that's why I'm here, because wow, as a rec director, I was really excited about what you could do with the dollar that you gave your local rec department. And with a little bit of time and effort that you give to your local climate advocate, I think you can do a lot more over time.
Thank you.
Hi. I'm Margaret Woodfall, and I'm from Vancouver Island, and I really empathize with you, Christine. I've learned a lot from my husband. It's a journey that we're on together. We've made a big carbon cube out of plastic pipe that was, I don't know, 20, yeah, that we trotted around to schools and community fairs to assemble, and it was a little teetery, but to show people like the size of a ton of carbon. We have a blow-up dinosaur that Peter ordered online somewhere that we trotted around in front of the Royal Bank to say that investing in fossil fuels was like going the way of the dinosaurs. So I've followed Peter around. We went to Washington a couple years ago on the climate lobby as well. And so I'm really looking forward to this and getting some more ideas today. So you're done.
I'm Doug Pritchett from Toronto East, and I guess something I feel good about recently is we've got meetings with 3 MPs from Scarborough that we haven't met with before, and a federal cabinet minister.
Great. My name is Mike Hopkins. I'm from here in Ottawa, and I've taken mostly a more passive advocacy thing by riding my bike around Ottawa with my zero carbon license plate on the back, parking myself in front of cars and hoping someone will get the message that you can bike around town and not emit any, and not have any emissions at all, and become very boorish at family gatherings to my family members, and made a lot of people feel guilty about flying to Hawaii 4 or 5 times a year. And just getting started here with CCL. I just met Mari and Penny a couple weeks ago, so I'm looking forward to this weekend.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Erin Smith. I moved to Ottawa about a year ago from BC. I've mostly just had conversations with friends and family and sort of considering, yeah, what I can do in the future. And I also feel that I'm just getting started.
Carole Lavallée from the greater city of Sudbury, outside in Chelmsford. And I started being active this year in March. And to my big surprise, I think it was in September or maybe early October, a little LTE under 150 words got published in all the Globe and Mails across Canada. I was like, what?
And she was hooked. It's dangerous. Almost, eh? Too shy. Okay, too shy. Okay. You know, it's nice that we still have a group that's small enough that we can actually do this and go around the room, because can you imagine when we have 500 people in the room? We're not going to be able to do this. So, just a couple of comments from what I heard. Somebody said, you know, that they were nervous and everything else, but you know, when you start up, you feel the fear and you do it anyways, and all of a sudden you get hooked on it. I can tell you from experience that I knocked on doors for 10 months for a campaign that I was running for, and every day from 9 a.m. to, in the summertime, 10 p.m., in the wintertime till 7 p.m., I knocked on doors. And the first day I went home and I was sick to my stomach because believe it or not, I'm a shy guy. And that was so difficult for me to do. So I understand when people say, well, I was afraid, it's hard to stop. But you know what? When you do it once, twice, I got hooked on knocking on doors. I couldn't wait to get up in the morning to knock on 7 days a week. My wife thought I was nuts. Very sick, very sick. As she would say, sick malade. Somebody mentioned that we need to learn to speak the language of the politicians. And I think sometimes it's the other way around. The politicians learn how to speak about the climate from us. And that's one of our jobs. Our jobs is there as educators, as supporters of people who will support us. The other thing I forgot to mention earlier is that we realize that change is incremental. Any government that comes into power and changes things overnight, they're gone the next day. So governments are about keeping power, parties are about keeping power. So all change is incremental, so you need to realize that. So every small change to everything just adds up. If you think of some of the laws in the past where we abolished hangings and capital punishment in this country, it was done little bits and pieces at a time. The laws on abortion, little bits and pieces at a time. The laws on same-sex marriage, little pieces at a time. So it does grow. We just lose sight of the fact that it is growing behind us, and that's very important. So it's incremental. Opportunities don't arise, we create them. And at CCL, we create opportunities. We go out, we talk to the politicians, we call them, we decide how we're going to approach them. And the other thing about CCL is that our approach works. We have, how many people are we lobbying this time? 40, who was 54. Okay, so that is a lot of people to lobby. And guess what? We're always welcome. We are not seen as, oh, not those guys again. It's a, what else can you help us with? What else are you giving us? And then, Boris, your family? Okay. And who are the hardest people to convince? The family. My wife is amazing. She doesn't give up on anything. She doesn't take no for an answer. She doesn't care what people say or do. She just does it. She'll go to my parents' place and open the garbage can, take out all the recycling stuff and recycle it. And my mother gets mad. My sisters get upset. Why are you upset? She's doing the right thing. Well, she shouldn't be doing that. Why not? I think she should be doing it. So yeah, boorish to families, and families are the worst ones to try to convince. So we're all inside with them. And with that, I think I'm going to call Cheryl up. You going to come and chat with me?
saying 1, 2, hello. One, two, okay.
It does come questions. It's great. Hey, Cheryl. How are you? Okay. I'm kind of excited about talking to you today. So we haven't chatted in a while. So we're going to chat about your open letter. Oh, your mic is not working? Oh, you may have to. Yeah, give. No, it's cutting back now.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm going to turn this off. Okay, perfect. Okay, good.
Okay, good.
All right.
Yes, I'm kind of excited because we're going to talk about your open letters.
Yes.
So how did this come about?
Well, we did the open letter. The idea came about last year when we lobbied here in Ottawa. And we were asking for all of the things that the open letter was calling for. And the sense that I certainly got from the Liberal MPs that we talked to, that they agreed with what we were asking, but they needed more political will. So basically the feedback was the government is kind of putting the initial carbon fee forward just to kind of test the waters.
Mm-hmm. So
yes.
So when you say political will, what do you mean exactly for some of the people who don't know what that means?
Political will means, is there a public appetite for this?
Mm-hmm.
And then I asked, because I know that US CCL has an endorsement letter, and I also know of other open letters. I actually did a successful one myself. And I asked them, if we were to have an open letter from the business community supporting this, would that be helpful? And the MPs that I spoke to, like their body language, they just, yes, absolutely. One NDP MP said, yes, we need the validators. That's what he called them.
Yep. It's like any new technology, you need people to eventually come and say, yeah, this is good, let's do this.
Exactly, yeah.
So the letter was did you put the letter together or?
Yeah, I did the initial draft, and thank you to Laura and to Judy in Nelson, BC. They were my editors.
Uh-huh.
And then I also gave it to Tom Rand, who is a venture capitalist in Toronto, as well as Celine Bach, who is with Analytica Advisors. She really looks at the clean tech industry. She's based in Ottawa. Tom is in Toronto, and they're both advisors to CCL.
Now, this had been tried in BC before, you said.
It had, yeah. In fact, the BC carbon tax, it's a funny story. When I first started the Toronto chapter in 2011, I reached out to a guy named Kevin Washbrook, and he was behind an organization called Voters Taking Action on Climate Change, based in Vancouver. And they sat down with Gord Campbell, who was the premier of the province then in 2007, and they were asking for the province to put in place a carbon tax. And he said, well, show me the support. I need the support. So they went out and they got all these green companies. Like basically, it was just basically green companies, and that was enough for him to implement a carbon tax.
Wow, really?
Yeah, according to Kevin. Yeah.
That's kind of nice.
It was, yeah.
So what do you hope is going to occur with your letter at this point in time? We'll come back to the letter in a couple of minutes. What are you hoping for?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you to everybody who's been so active in their writings, getting businesses to sign on to it. That's been a huge help. Mm-hmm. What I'm hoping for, we're getting close to 250. Last time I checked, it was 235, and that's pretty impressive. What I'm hoping for everyone here when they're lobbying MPs is to ask a few questions and ask our MPs to do something with the letter. First of all, I would love for you to get a sense from the MP of the reaction to this. Are they excited about this? Are they nonplussed? What's the reaction? What's their comment? What's their first comment on it? Oh, this is great, but there's a lot of green companies here. You're missing these companies, or where's the labor, or we need more Indigenous groups, whatever it is. Where are the companies from, Saskatchewan and Manitoba and some of the provinces that are not represented? So getting kind of a sense of their reaction, or if you have some MPs say, this is really good to go, right? I think we can have some traction on this. The other thing that I would love for folks to do is to ask their MP, could you please put this, especially if they're a Liberal, could you please put this in front of the Minister of Environment and Climate Change?
Yeah, because so this plays exactly to what we were saying earlier, that all politics is local.
Yes.
So the local MPs, the local...
Exactly.
Well,
Perfect. Exactly. Bring this up with your caucus.
Mm-hmm.
And if the MP is with an opposition party, to put it to the attention of the critic of the minister or the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change.
So what does the letter say exactly?
So for those who haven't read the letter, it's asking for three things. Right now, and one of the things that we do is to applaud the government for actually putting in place, starting next year, a rising fee on carbon. This is what we've been asking for a very long time. So hurrah, that's a big win for us. Unfortunately, the price has a 5-year term, and we don't know what's going to happen afterwards. So what we're asking is that it extend beyond that. We're giving a date, 2030. But by then it would raise to, I don't know, more than $150 per carbon ton. And we argue that businesses need to take the longer view. So there's that. We also need to make sure that the carbon price is comprehensive across the country. So if you have one province that is pricing carbon at the retail level, you have another province that's pricing it at the wholesale level, that's not fair. And it could lead to what's referred to as leakage. So businesses picking up from one province and leaving to another. That's the argument that we make. So we like to, CCL, we argue that the carbon price should be priced as upstream as possible at the wellhead or point of import.
And it should be a Canadian fee.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah. And then the third thing is border tax adjustments. Of course, this is something what we officially asked for. We are asking the government to actually study this. And I think that this would be a great ask for the senators as well, because senators like to study things. But we know that, and I think the problem with border tax adjustments is that we have this very tense situation happening with our U.S. partner on NAFTA, and people keep raising, this is something that you do not want to implement right now. You're only going to, infuriate Donald Trump. A border tax adjustment, we're just asking if they can study it, right? Yes, the language in the letter is, we want you to implement it, but before you implement, you need to study it. So this takes time. But we just want to get the ball rolling. We want to get it on their radar.
So wasn't that the holdout from the Toronto Board of Trade, or?
Yes, it was. So one of my colleagues, Liz Rice, and I met with the Toronto Region Board of Trade a couple of weeks ago. We met with the policy advisor, Jeff Parker, who's actually going to be speaking tomorrow. And he loved it. He loves CCL. He did his due diligence. He researched us. He said how refreshing it is to actually speak to people who get it. He said that there's two reasons why he couldn't support the letter. He supported everything else, but there was two reasons. They're not sold on border tax adjustments. He was sold, but Eco-Fiscal Commission convinced him to support subsidies. So we have to work on him on that.
Yes.
But he did say he's open for study. Like he has no problem in studying it. So that's if you're talking to your MP and the Board of Trade happens to come up, that's one thing you can say. But here's also what's interesting. We didn't have returning the revenue back to people on that. He needs it to be revenue neutral. My comment on that was, yes, unfortunately right now with the federal government, it's a bit of a non-starter because they say it is revenue neutral. They're giving it back to the provinces. So now we have to focus on the provinces.
Pass the buck.
Yes, passing the buck. We do need to emphasize, of course, that for the federal government, the public, the general public, they don't really understand the dynamic between the provinces and the federal government. If there's a carbon tax, and they know that there's a rising carbon tax, and it's coming from the federal government, and they find that they're not getting any money back, if they find that things are getting a little bit more expensive, then who are they going to blame? They're going to probably
Exactly.
blame the federal government.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I would.
So it's gently, lightly, letting them know
Incremental.
exactly, letting them know that. So I'm thinking, there's a second open letter in the works after we find success with this one, and that would be focusing on.
Define success.
Success would be everything that we're calling for is implemented. So we see that they're confirming that they're extending the rising fee beyond 2022 to 2030, that they're going to ensure that all provinces make sure that the price is as comprehensive as possible, and that they're going to at least look at border tax adjustments.
How many signatories are you looking to get? Signers you're looking to
Oh, good
your letter?
question. I don't know. And again, that's thousands.
Thousands, absolutely, absolutely. But is there a number where you're saying we're going to another letter now?
You know what? That's a good question, and I think it's making sure that we find success before we move on. But and then I think that's open to negotiation. But in terms of numbers, I think maybe that's up to the MPs to tell us.
Mm-hmm. Quite possibly. I'm kind of excited about your letter because it is going in the right direction. We are getting the people who are impacting or being impacted signing the letter. I think that's the Board of Trade is, to me, amazing. Because the Toronto Board of Trade has signed this thing, I mean, that's impetus for everyone.
They haven't signed it.
They haven't signed it.
No.
But they are.
They like some of the stuff, but there's certain things that they don't.
So we need to find out what this.
It's making it revenue neutral, and it's also the border tax adjustments, which we'll be working on.
So all they want you to do is remove the border tax adjustment at this point,
and include making it revenue neutral. So I'm not expecting the Board of Trade to sign our open letter, but they might sign a second one.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Cheryl, good luck. Oh, you want to
one thing.
Okay.
The City of Toronto signed the open letter.
That's what I wanted to say. I meant the city.
Yeah. And so they signed it on October 2nd. I want to thank the CCL people that helped me make that possible. So I encourage everyone to look to their own cities and towns about getting it signed as well.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and good luck and fantastic job.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. They're going to take a minute to change the stage, and we'll be right back.
Testing, 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 testing. Testing, testing, testing. Testing, 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 testing. We should probably put this.
I'm really looking forward to hearing more about what you guys are up to. She's not already in the Not really. You're all here. There's other things around there.
Yeah, there's just. It's pretty and fun.
Someday. Yeah, I've never been to that too. What do you think? Where are you going into?
Oh yeah.
So we're ready to rock and roll here. Wait, we're on. Yep, I'll sit down.
Sure.
If I can have your attention. We'll continue with the program. I'm going to ask Kathy to come up and just frame this next session of the Community Connections panel.
Thank you, Jerry. I'm really happy today to have these three people here on the panel with us. I've known Senator Grant Mitchell introduced me to Joe Gunn way back in 2011, and I met Kat also through the Climate Action Network, which she now runs, in 2011. And Matthew here is with Climate Reality and a special portion of it. So I'm really happy that they've come here today. They're some of my climate heroes, and you're going to hear more about that at the end. Surprise. And so just to frame it for you, when we developed our plan to create political will, although we lobby mostly at the federal level, we do recognize that we have to work with our municipal politicians as well, and at the municipal level. These small little wins that we get in our community are going to lead to the big win, which is creating a livable planet. I've given them full permission to steal any of you as volunteers in their organization, and I'd like to pass it back over to Jerry.
Thank you very much, Kathy. I'm going to introduce our first speaker, which is Matthew Chapman. He's the campaign coordinator at Climate Reality. He joined Climate Reality team as campaign coordinator in April of 2016. His experience in the fields of fine arts, education, international business have shaped his understanding of the challenges and opportunities our society and civilization face. As a member of the national team leading the ClimateHub.ca initiative, he is convinced that building resilient communities is at the heart of the transition to a more sustainable and socially equitable economy. Matthew, welcome.
Thank you, Jerry. Do you want to stand up to talk, or you want to take it off? I guess I'll stand because I've got to advance the slides. Yep, I guess so.
Terrific. So I've just stepped out of a really long ride back from Pittsburgh yesterday, and I really enjoyed my time. And you might notice, if you can tell in the picture here, that Dr. Elaine is in this photo. So hiding somewhere in the crowd. Yeah. So we had a great time, and this is the kind of training that happens 3 times a year with Climate Reality Project. The U.S. branch puts these trainings on a little bit all around the world, and so that was the Canadian contingent that was there with us. We had a great time, and the purpose being to equip citizens to say, I don't need to wait for someone else to do something. I don't need to wait for the government to do something, or for you know, an environmental organization to do something. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to become an ambassador for climate progress. So you guys are already doing that. Congratulations. And what we're trying to do here is multiply that and push more people out. How many folks in the room are members of or have taken a training with Climate Reality? Okay, good. So we got about a dozen or half a dozen. Yeah, a dozen, including the folks in the back there. So what I did actually prior to attending a training for Climate Reality, I was already just chomping at the bit. So in Montreal, as many of you do in your municipalities, we started putting together a coalition of people who wanted to represent their groups or their communities and tell the mayor, we want to see action on climate. We have a vision for the city. That's a carbon neutral city in 25 years. So for our 400th anniversary, and that visionary target became the glue that bound these 36 kind of ambassadors and their communities together. So some of these folks are Climate Reality, some of them aren't, but that it doesn't matter. What we're doing is equipping, mobilizing citizens, encouraging them to use their voice. So just really quickly, I'm going to go through a snapshot of local action in climate action in Canada, the catalyzing factors that right now make this a good time for us to step forward and focus on our municipalities, the Community Climate Hub Initiative, specifically, what are we proposing? And then if we have some time, but I think I'll probably be out of time by then, who's going to be flagging me? Somebody's going to tell me when to be quiet, and then I'll do that and I'll sit down. So how many people are in contact with their municipal officials on climate right now? Okay, good. So good number. And the nice thing is, unlike your federal officials, you've got the opportunity to knock on their door just about any day of the week. So you can go down to City Hall, you can go down to your councillor's office and have time to sit and talk with them. So of the 3,600 or odd local governments in Canada, 4.2%, according to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, have set a GHG reduction target. Okay, that is pitiful as far as I'm concerned. And what we're trying to do is say, if we're going to work from the top down, that's great. Yes, we need all these wonderful top down, Paris, 2 degrees, 1.5 degrees. We need a national price on carbon. We need all these things, but without the bottom up, those things are going to fall flat, as unfortunately they have south of the border. Well, you know, notwithstanding the progress that states and cities are making in spite of federal policies. So is there room for improvement? Yes. Okay, always room, certainly. And there's lots going on. So the question that we posed ourselves when developing this idea, this initiative, the climatehub.ca initiative, is can we coordinate better our activities? And we think the answer is absolutely. There's nothing coordinating local activities right now across the country. So what could that look like if everybody was to coordinate their activities at the local level and hit similar messages, not always exactly the same message, but a message related to your city that was in line with these big top-down targets, but that spoke to citizens. So in Montreal's case, the 400th anniversary is coming up in 25 years. It's a good time horizon, it's ambitious, and it works with us. What I've heard from the Ottawa group, because we're launching a hub here in Ottawa, is that Ottawa wants to become the greenest capital city in the world. So that could be the visionary target that Ottawa sets for itself. And for every municipality, it's going to be different. Quickly, why are things different? Because this kind of mobilization has been proposed before, and I recognize that. And we've had long conversations with folks at Climate, the Climate Action Network, for example, Louise Comeau, the former director prior to CAT. And what we're saying now is now we've got a few catalyzing factors that are new, that have changed. So quickly, the economic catalyzers, we've had increasingly in recent years the economic proof that inaction is costly. So we're able to put that forward to municipal governments and say, look at the bills you're paying. Look at what could be saved when we think preventative, when we think, you know, in the long run, 5, 10, 15, 20-year time horizon decisions, as opposed to like the 4-year election cycle. Financial catalyzers, millions, 75 in the Green Municipal Fund, in addition to 100 million at the, just for Ontario on municipal climate action. So money is available through the Ontario government, through the FCM, and through various other provincial initiatives. Technological catalyzers, right now citizens, without being you know, a paid climate activist from Greenpeace or anywhere else, you can use these free tools to do it yourself in your communities. You don't need to pay for Salesforce. You don't need to pay for any other CRM or any, this stuff is available for everyone to use. So part of our role is helping citizens equip themselves to use these tools. We do workshops and webinars on them, among other topics. The scientific catalyzers. Catherine Potvin of McGill University pulled together 70 scientists from across the country, from archaeology to zoology, and they put 10 kind of recommendations on the table. So we've got the scientific community, both at the national level in Canada and of course at the IPCC level, stating in increasingly certain terms that we need to take urgent action. So new things. I'd like to give a shout out to Citizens Climate Lobby here. The book that you guys produced, were you part of that, Gary? Okay, 5 minutes, good. That's what that meant. Great. So you guys put out this wonderful, wonderful publication in 2012, I believe, and that was a big inspiration for what we did in Montreal. Basically saying we need to diversify this community if we're going to have a political impact. When politicians want a more political will, what they're saying is you represent a fraction of the electorate. You represent a fraction that is too small for me to do whatever you want. Essentially, that's what they're saying. And what this helps us do, and what we're trying to propose through the through the climatehub.ca initiative, is diversifying our message, speaking to different groups with different messages that converge on a similar vision. So here's what we're proposing, the Climate Hub initiative. Local, focused on your municipal government, so that you build community, so that you build relationships that last a lifetime. It's wonderful to connect once a year in a room like this, but also when we go back to our communities, many of you have local CCL chapters, and what we're trying to say is, in addition to pushing at the federal level, push up, also, you know, push down here at the municipal level. What can your mayor, what can your city council be doing on climate? Do they know that you care about it? And if they don't, then there's an opportunity there to make your voice heard close to home. Citizen driven, we believe that citizens are the key. Good, yeah, I've got a minute left, so I'll just finish this slide. Citizens are the key. It's not gonna come from corporate Canada. We're not gonna all of a sudden receive a ton of money from the Royal Bank in order to drive citizen climate action. I don't believe that's happening, so I'll conclude there. Thank you. I believe so, yes. Yeah, and climatehub.ca, I would get there. That's the website if you'd like more information.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Joe Gunn. He's served as Executive Director at Citizens for Public Justice since August of 2008. He served as a founding Vice Chair of CAROS, Canadian Ecumenical Justice Initiatives. That's the French in me that's having a hard time with those words. I still say home economics. And has been active in the Canadian Council of Churches Commission for Justice and Peace. After engaging Canadian faith communities and speaking out on climate justice, in 2012, Joe was awarded the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal for exemplary service and commitment for the betterment of the community. In June of 2013, Joe was awarded a Certificate of Honor from Development and Peace for commitment to the cause of social justice and efforts to improve living conditions for the poorest of the poor in the Global South. St. Paul University granted Joe the Eugene de Maisonneuve Medal in April 2017. The medal honors individuals who have made a significant contribution to the development of human capital in the community. Joe?
so much. So I didn't bring a PowerPoint. I do have a bit of show and tell for you though. Yeah, can you do that? So let me just say that Citizens for Public Justice is a small organization that works with faith communities. And so we're here in Ottawa. We've been around since the 60s, but have been in Ottawa since 2007. We just this last week, more generic? Terrific. A big tower, maybe the Tower of Babel. So just this last week, we work, one of the issues we work on poverty, the other is refugees. With regard to our poverty campaign, we have a postcard. I'll leave some of these at the back if you'd like to see that, because we know that activists are activists are activists. For the International Day for the Eradication of Poverty, the government is developing a poverty reduction plan for the first time, which is good. They just haven't done it yet. And we're encouraging the federal minister to get on with it because he really wants to do that. So we had events in 84 communities this year, including on the Hill. And this card, which for 5 years now we've worked on helping people, especially in faith communities. You know, the issue with faith communities is that we're really good at taking care of people who are in poverty or at food banks and this kind of thing. We're really poor at moving towards encouraging government to make sure that there are fewer people needing those services. And the same can be true, if you will, around what we do around climate issues. So at cpj.ca, which is our website, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we have to offer and what we've tried to do in 10 minutes. So we really wanted to get those kinds of people that are still involved in faith communities. It's a smaller group of people in Canadian society than perhaps ever before, but they're actually people who donate more time, and they're people that donate more money and are quite committed to their particular faith communities, whatever it may be. And there are some communities that grow because of immigration to Canada. Most of the historic churches are frankly getting smaller, but they do perhaps give us some avenues for engagement, and that's kind of our network of people that we try to work with. And what I want to do is offer you what CPJ might have available, so that if you're ever invited to give a talk in a dark basement of Mary Mother Pathanusha of the Blazing Bosoms Catholic Church in Elks Crotch, Saskatchewan, I've been there. You have some tools that might be particularly helpful. So we have things like sermon notes on our website, so that people from different faith communities who want to talk about climate issues can see from their particular tribe, their particular faith community, what might be able to be said. The honest truth is that anybody here from Newfoundland? I always tell this story about this priest from Newfoundland. Newfoundlanders always tell the truth. We wanted to do these events, and his church, he said, well, I'll agree to let you do that event, but I can't speak about it. We never studied climate change when I was in seminary. It's true. It's true. So we have some of a way to go. But we have sermon notes. We have prayers. We have songs and hymns, suggestions. We have small group activities that are available to faith communities. We have a list of guest speakers and so on. You can find all that on our website. And we work with groups like Green Church, which is especially active in Quebec, L'Église Verte, which has all kinds of work on greening sacred spaces, as does Faith in the Common Good. People from Faith in the Common Good and myself will be next Saturday doing 2 events here in Ottawa as well. We also have a book that's available of prayers and reflections and action suggestions for especially Christians in this case, but from all different denominations. So this is the kind of thing that we try and do. The other thing we're trying to engage faith communities to do is be involved in divestment campaigns. And there are groups like in BC, Fossil Free Faith, it's called. It's a wonderful organization of young people. Groups like CPJ have divested our massive economic holdings from from fossil free. So there are now ways that you can do this, as you may know, and worldwide this is catching on. The Jesuits order in Quebec and English-speaking Canada, Upper Canada as they call it, have decided to divest their holdings and so on from, and other groups have. October 3rd, there was a worldwide announcement of Catholic groups because it's the feast of St. Francis, which kind of makes sense. So there's divestment actions being taken by some religious, and the really important ones in Canada are frankly religious orders of women, congregations of women that held all kinds of properties and ran hospitals and schools and all kinds of things. The other thing we've tried to do is, and this might be of interest to you to back up the kind of work you're doing, if you run into people that are from faith communities, most of them don't know what their church says or thinks. And many of them have actually spoken on climate issues. So if you go into our website, you can actually click on any number of about 9 different faith communities, United Church, Anglican, Catholic, whatever, and you can see what, so if you get invited to a Mennonite congregation and you want to know what Mennonites actually think, or you want to do outreach with that group, you can go in and click, and it might allow you to have some idea. The truth is, this is a little bit of a self-critical look at how we get organized as churches. We had joint statements before the 2011 election. 60 different groups signed on around climate issues. We didn't have the Catholic Bishops of Canada signing on at that time. In 2015, we did the same kind of exercise. We took 3 leaders across the province, across the country. We had the National Bishop of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Canada, the leader of the Mennonite Church in Canada, and the General Secretary of the Canadian Council of Churches, who's a United Church minister, went across Canada, held hearings, heard from people who are in afternoons who wanted to speak to about poverty and about climate. What could we do? And in the evening, we had open sessions. We ended this in Ottawa at the Anglican Cathedral, with about 130 people coming out, and then a statement was released. This time, again, over 60 different groups, Muslim groups, Jewish groups, Christian groups, everybody signed on. Unfortunately, 99% of the people that would sit in a pew on a Sunday or a Saturday wouldn't know about this. And that's our weakness as institutions to get that word out. But I have copies of that document. I can leave it at the back, and you can get it. If you ever get that kind of an opportunity to speak, and you can see the list of signatories, and maybe it's people that you're going to be engaged with. I want to leave you with one final suggestion for possible actions. We've decided to move on for all of these various things. Well, let me just say, even if you're going on the Hill, as I know you're doing these last couple of days, we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago with Ed Fast. And to be able to talk to Ed Fast, who's the critic for the Conservative Party on the Environment Committee, but be able to talk to Ed about what the Mennonite church, his church, had actually said and done about climate is kind of a useful opening part. Well, maybe not even opening, but we got into it a little bit. So if that's at all help, you get some of that information on our website. We're moving on with another campaign. It's particularly directed to Christians, though, I must say. And that is around Lent. Lent are the 40 days before Easter that many Christian folks are involved in. When I was younger, what you do in Lent is you'd give something up. You give up candy, or you'd do something that looked penitential before Easter to prepare for this in those 40 days, right? We've started last year a campaign called Give It Up for the Earth. And so what we asked people to do, and we sent these out to 90 communities across the country that wanted to get involved. And people just decide over the next 6 weeks, I will do things like cut my driving, and I'll commute by foot, cycling, transit, whatever. I'll eliminate meat from my diet more often. I'll commit to a staycation rather than a March break, which fell in that period last year. People could sign on to those things, but then it also had things that we want government to do. Will your government act on climate change? We're going to do this again this year. We hope to double the number of groups using it, and we'll invite you to participate. We're going to focus on subsidies. We're going to ask the government to really cut subsidies. I hope that's somewhat useful, and we can chat in the next little while about how we might be able to engage some of these faith communities.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Catherine Abreu. She's the Executive Director of Climate Action Network, Réseau Action Climat. Catherine joined Canada's Climate Action Network in July of 2016 after 5 years of leading the energy and climate change mitigation programs at the Ecology Action Centre. Catherine is committed to work that confronts climate change head-on, wielding bold and creative strategies. She thinks a lot about citizenship, community, and beauty, and does her best to incorporate those values in all that she does. An accomplished public speaker, Catherine has been honored to share the stage with some of Canada's leading environmental thinkers, including David Suzuki and Maud Barlow. Her commentary was featured in many news outlets, including the New York Times, the Globe and Mail, the Toronto Star, the Financial Post, and Vice. She appears frequently on CBC, CTV, Global, and other current affairs television and radio programs. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Catherine Abreu.
Thanks so much, Jerry. Hey, Matt, do you want to make this lower for me? Thanks. And thank you for pronouncing the French translation of our organizational name way better than I ever can. Appreciate that. Yeah, great. All right. Excellent. So, as we were listening to Joe's introduction, Matt leaned over to me and said, I wouldn't want to follow him. I'm going to do my best. How many of you have heard of Climate Action Network? Yay, that warms my heart. I often ask that to a room full of people and get far fewer hands, but I actually did a quick back of the envelope calculation, and I think about 60% of the people that you're going to hear from at this conference belong to CAN member organizations, which is pretty exciting for me. So what is Climate Action Network? Well, we're an umbrella organization. We're member-based. We have over 100 members working from coast to coast to coast who represent organizations that care about how a changing climate affects people, plants, wildlife. For 27 years, we have been the only organization in Canada with a mandate to address the needs of the climate movement as a whole in this country rather than the objectives of any one organization. And this is an image from 2005 when Canada hosted the international climate community at a United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change meeting. And someone familiar who might recognize in the middle there showed up. And many of our members were there to greet him. So in front, we have Elizabeth May, who at the time was running Sierra Club Canada and was also hosting Climate Action Network in her office. With her is Zoe Caron, the current Chief of Staff of Natural Resources Canada. Hiding there in the back, we have Joy Kennedy, a longtime Climate Action Network board member. So we've been around for a little while. I have been the executive director with Climate Action Network for just over a year now, and it is my tremendous privilege to see what I can do to reinvigorate this network and make sure that it keeps going strong. So what I'm going to do today is give you a little bit of an overview of how we work. First, as I said, we work by bringing organizations that care about these issues together. And we work to build social consensus for bold climate action by nurturing a network of over 100 passionate organizations. And so I get to have a really exciting bird's eye view of all of the work happening in organizations like Citizens Climate Lobby, like Citizens for Public Justice, like Climate Reality Project Canada. And I get to figure out ways to nurture synergies between the organizations that are doing this amazing work. And so I spend a lot of my time thinking about how I can distribute information about the work that inspires me that comes out of member organizations, how I can make sure some of the member organizations who perhaps don't have as much of a reach as some of our others get profile and their work is highlighted. I spend time thinking about how I can ensure that someone who's working away on Vancouver Island in Victoria, BC, knows about the work that's happening in Newfoundland and Labrador. It's really providing that connective tissue of this beautiful movement of climate heroes across the country that is my objective and really my passion. How do we do that? Well, through a variety of measures. So we have a really active listserv that all of our member organizations are invited onto, and a number of climate allies who are not belonging to member organizations necessarily, but who are very active in this sphere also belong to that listserv. And it's a place where people can share information, share resources, talk about various ideas, ask questions. We also, every couple of weeks, every few weeks, we release the Climate Bulletin, which is a snapshot at some of the amazing work being done across the country. And that's something that everyone is welcome to sign up for. If you head to our website, you'll easily find a link to sign up for the Climate Bulletin. This is a snapshot from our May edition of the Climate Bulletin, where we worked with the E4D, Evidence for Democracy, on the March for Science that happened on the Hill, and I had the privilege of speaking at that rally. We also host an annual convergence of climate heroes called ClimaCon, which just took place at the end of September, and I know a few of you in the room were with us. It is an opportunity for climate activists from across the country to get together, learn from each other, and most importantly, have fun. This is really tremendously challenging work that we take on every day, and it's not often that we, I think, provide ourselves the opportunity to relax, to have conversations amongst ourselves, and to really do something that is about fortifying ourselves for the next leg of the effort. And so I initiated ClimaCon with the intention of providing a low-key, relaxed opportunity for the people who inspire me and show up for this work every day to get together and enjoy themselves. Beyond providing those kind of network services, we also do a variety of domestic policy and government relations work. And that shows up in a few incarnations. So it's not my interest to duplicate the efforts of my members. You've heard already about the incredible work happening in the ground in just a tiny portion of the membership of Climate Action Network. And, you know, just imagine what you've heard from Matt and Joe and Kathy today, duplicated like 100 times over. People are doing incredible stuff through this country, and there's no need for Climate Action Network to come in and do it all over again. What I do on the policy front is I look for those gaps. I look for opportunities to kind of come in where no one member organization is focused so far and figure out how to fill that gap. And so an example of that is when the Canadian government was coming up with the Pan-Canadian Framework on Climate Change, I realized that not one of our member organizations was thinking about the oversight mechanism or the accountability mechanism for that framework, which is really critical because we know that Canada's climate ambition is completely insufficient. And if we're ever going to get to a place where the framework is actually doing the work that it needs to do and increasing our ambition in this country, we need some very robust accountability mechanisms. And so I advocated for that. Something else that we do at Climate Action Network is sign on to some of our members' work. And so the Modernizing Canada's Electricity Systems paper is an example of us joining together with many of our members to amplify some of the policy work being done there. On the government relations front, we traditionally provided a lobby day on the Hill annually. We are now moving to a distributed model of lobby days where we will be developing a toolkit that will facilitate and empower our membership across the country to actually do lobbying within their constituencies. And I'm really looking forward to learning from Citizens Climate Lobby, who've been doing that for a really long time, and I know will provide us with lots of amazing resources to make that happen. Finally, the third pillar of Climate Action Network's work, along with nurturing the network and doing that domestic policy and government relations stuff, is connecting to the international realm. And so I often serve as the Canadian sort of focal point for climate and energy related issues from the international community. This is an image of our delegation to COP23 in Marrakesh last year, or COP22 in Marrakesh last year. And I focus on any area where domestic policy intersects with international policy. And so Joe talked about a campaign to phase out fossil fuel subsidies, incredible work happening on the ground on that here in Canada. There's also a lot of international work happening on that. And so I was just invited to a meeting in Argentina where I'll have the privilege to speak about some of the campaigns happening in Canada to the kind of broader international coalition working to phase out fossil fuel subsidies. And then of course, and this is really, I think, the part of my work where my heart lives, relationship building and communications. And so I think it's really powerful when we can all come together and not necessarily say the same thing. It's important that we all have different points of view and have the opportunity to articulate those. But it's also important that we have a platform that allows us to come together and discuss those points of view and present a united front. So it's diversity of tactics, unity of purpose. That's really what the whole kind of ethos of Climate Action Network is. And so I spend a lot of my time thinking about how to ensure that we have that platform to have those conversations so that we are moving forward together as a united front, even though we are employing diversity of tactics. And finally, being able to hang out with people who just work their butts off and are heroes every day is what fuels me. And so here's an image from ClimateCon. I see, Kathy, that perhaps this cape is making an appearance later today. I had the pleasure of wearing this amazing cape earlier this year. And yeah, I would encourage you to connect with Climate Action Network for the mere purpose of being able to like broaden your community. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Great perspective in a lot of different areas. And you are going to do something, are you? Yes, well, we're going to have a question and answer period. So think of some questions while she's up to no good back there. She's doing something, and it's probably going to impact everyone. I mean, what could it be? So if you've got some questions ready, we will get started as soon as Kathy is. Are you ready there? Almost. Okay. Get your cameras ready. Here it comes. Here it comes. We need to after all the talking, there's a lot of sweating up here. So we're going to have to change it to something more comfortable. Yep.
Okay, so I went to ClimateCon and I got the memo to bring a cape, and I was the only one who wore a cape. 200 people and just me with this beautiful cape on. Thank you, sister, for the cape. So next year I wanted to make sure I wasn't the only one wearing a cape. So I fixed up a cape. I bought a cape because I kind of messed up your cape. And I made a cape out of a curtain, just like, you know, Sound of Music. So, so here's your cape.
Whoa. Oh.
It's made from a curtain. It kind of looks like a priest's cloak, but whatever.
At least it's not purple.
I encourage all of you to make a cake. You feel so much better, don't you? Yeah, okay. All right. Yes. Yes. Wow. Thank you. I've been waiting, like, I dreamt of that at the conference. It's like, I'm going to get them back. Yeah. Okay. Sweet Claire.
Marvelous. Wow, we made it
Yeah.
to town.
Oh my God.
Parliament Hill later?
All right. Yeah. I wonder if they'll let us in.
Test, okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll entertain questions from the audience. Raise your hand, I'll bring the microphone to you. Yes, Tom.
Okay. At a few years ago, I can't remember, maybe 5, one of the things that at a CanRec AGM and sort of a strat planning activity, there was a notion of some common messaging. Like if each member organization could at least say these 2 sentences as part of their positioning, it would really help. Like, for instance, climate change is caused by the extraction and burning of fossil fuels. We've got ways to reduce our emissions, and they are such. Has there been any progress sort of under the CanRec umbrella to sort of to get that messaging move forward?
Thank you. Anyone who's going to take this question?
I guess I gotta. Great question. So there have been several efforts through the history of Climate Action Network to develop shared messaging for member organizations, and I see that shared messaging deployed fairly regularly. And so, you know, for instance, we have shared messaging around the lack of sufficient ambition within Canada's share of the global effort to confront climate change. And so I hear our member organizations repeat that, and also repeat the calculations that Climate Action Network has done of what a kind of closer measurement of Canada's fair share would be. I also hear repeated fairly regularly the effort to strive for 100% renewable energy, which was which was a communication effort that happened a couple of years ago, and you might remember a huge rally on Parliament Hill, and Climate Action Network was a big part of pushing that out. And so this is the interesting element of running a network, right? Is while we have the ability to provide those kinds of resources to our membership, and we have a convening, coordinating capacity that ensures our membership might have the kind of skill or tool set they need to deploy that messaging, we have no control over how often or how loudly that messaging is repeated, you know, whether it appears in their media comments or just sits on their website. So I think that's part of the beauty of a collaboration between such a diversity of organizations. But something that I am working on, and this is an emerging project, is to partner with an organization called Climate Outreach, which was founded by George Marshall, and they are Europe's leading climate change communications organization. And what I hope to do with them, if I can find enough money, is to develop a Canada-specific communications training that we would then take to our member organizations on the ground across the country. And they would be able to, through that training, learn how to train members of their organizations in that communications. Because it's not about us all necessarily saying the same thing over and over, but I think it perhaps is about us feeling confident to speak to people that don't necessarily agree with us. And so that's what I'm working on now.
Thank you very much. Question?
Who? This will be to Matt, I think, on the Climate Hub. I think it's terrific that you're taking a look at municipal implications of climate and how their policies can help out. Really, that's where the rubber kind of hits the road on a lot of the impacts that happen from climate change, for sure. So some of the work, one of the slides you had put up talked about only 4.2% of them had set up a GHG target. Looking at the different types of municipalities, some of them are very small municipalities that don't have a lot of tools or expertise. Do you help them out with that, or do you provide them with some sort of guidance as to how they can do that work?
Great question. Your name? Greg. Thanks, Greg. So
we're a small organization, but we know where the tools and resources are. The FCM will finance a local climate plan. They will finance the development of an inventory for a municipality all across the country, whether or not you are a member of the FCM, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So that organization financed by the federal government, we're here to tell citizens, listen, talk to your mayor, make sure they're applying for that money. Make sure that money that's going through the FCM is well spent and that the plan that's developed gets implemented. Because frequently what happens is that plan sits on a shelf because some public servant dutifully applied for the money, got the plan made, consulted a half a dozen citizens, and that's where it ended. And that's where the FCM is finding it difficult to move to implementation. So that's where folks that are already active like yourselves and others in your community who might care a little bit less about or they might not understand the complexity or the abstractness of the federal policies or the international directions, but they can tell that, you know, my city, I can't cycle safely to where I want to go, or there's no way for me to compost my organic waste. That's something that touches their day-to-day life. So it reaches a different segment of the population, and I think a much larger segment. So it helps us broaden the people we're talking to. And so, thank you.
Thank you. My question is for Joe. Joe, it's Cheryl.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, how are you doing? My question is, you mentioned Ed Fast, and a great example, he's a Mennonite, and you were able to open a conversation with him regarding the position of the church on climate change. In the United States, when we go down to lobby, we're given, when we look at the dossier of every congressperson or senator we're about to meet with, it indicates their religious affiliation. Religion obviously plays a real important role of political representatives in the United States. I'm curious, how much of a role does it play, do you find, with Canadian representatives?
Wow. Thanks, Cheryl. It's kind of a tough question. There is a different modus operandi between the United States and Canada. There's also a much stronger, if you'll allow me to say this, religious right in the United States than in Canada. But it is true that there are certain faith communities that we've only made very minimal reach into. Evangelicals, for example, the Evangelical Fellowship, an organization of more than 40 some odd different groups, won't work on climate issues with us. They will work on other issues with us. So it's a little bit different, work in progress, and it depends on the MP. Really, there are some that are quite well known. Certain MPs that are well known because of their background, and there are other people that find it politically difficult. So some years, for example, some years ago, the NDP, for example, had a Faith and Justice Caucus, where they tried, because a lot of people on the left, if you'll excuse the stereotype, thought that faith was a thing that prevented people from positive, progressive political stances. But other people thought that maybe they came to their politics through religious belief. And Ipsos Reid did a study this last March that actually suggested when people are asked what informs your values around things, more than half of Canadians say it's my religious beliefs are part of it. Now, how that translates is really, there's a wide spectrum of how that works. So there's no easy answer to that important question, but hopefully with a few MPs, it's certainly, it opens some doors perhaps.
Thank you. Other questions? Seeing as none, I want to thank you very, very, very much for coming in this afternoon and for your excellent presentations. Thank you. Any final comments from any of you that you'd like to make?
Wear those capes proudly.
And watch when you're flying. It's
Yeah, and
dangerous.
thanks, Kathy, for fulfilling all of my nerd dreams. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Maybe we each want to give important cards to take if you like. Yes, these cards. I think, yeah, that's what we had. That's it. Yeah. Thank you. And if anybody wants to sign on to that Lent thing, just look at our website. We'll be asking. We'll ship them out to you.
They want more pictures, so let's take about a 10-minute break. Sorry. Wait. You gotta go online for a moment. But we want more pictures. So let's say goodbye to people online.
Yes.
Can you do that? And where would you like photos?
So we're signing off to the online people right now. So thank you very much for coming on, and hopefully are we on again tomorrow?
Oh yeah, we're on.
We're on all day tomorrow, so we'll see you tomorrow. And enjoy your evening and go do some planning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a nice day. Thank you.
You don't want to wear? Yeah. You can't give it to me.